Hello and welcome to The Thing I Love Most show, and if you don't know by now, the thing that we love most is Spurs. So we're here today to talk about all things Tottenham. I'm joined this week by, once again, Big Bad Don. Big Bad Don is in the building.
I am here.
Thanks for coming. Last week you were deputised by Rod, who is now moved back in front of the camera. Back in front of the camera? Back behind the camera. Because he is our videographer and editor. He will be back in front of the camera soon though, so all your Rod fans out there, don't despair. So we are back this week to give you more insight into the week of Tottenham Hotspur. We obviously had quite a good victory, 3-1 against Fulham, which we'll be talking about and dissecting in various ways. We're going to be playing Tottenham Top Trumps, which I know you're excited about.
Very excited.
We're going to be talking about our player of the week, and we're going to also be hearing from a Man United fan about the next match we have coming up next Bank Holiday Monday, and lots to hear from him as well. So stay tuned and more of the show. Okay, so it's time to discuss our 3-1 victory against Fulham on Saturday. So firstly, what were your thoughts, Don? Were you impressed? Were you a happy man?
Extremely happy with the result. The end result of 3-1 was great. I do believe, really, we should have had more goals in the first half. I think to come in at 1-0 up at half-time wasn't...
He missed a couple of sitters, didn't he? I mean,
yeah.
We'll come on to the man of match shortly, but yeah, I mean, Mora did have a very good game, but I mean, there were two gilt-edged chances that he missed in the early stages, and it was unfortunate, but I think overall we've got to be happy, really. It was, back at Wembley, which obviously still isn't our home, even though we made it our home last season. I think we gave them enough trouble. I think they were a good team. I think they're going to be fine this season. I really do. They're far from the worst team in the Prem, and I think they performed quite well.
I agree. I think that they're going to have to settle down. They've got a lot of new players, and we were lucky to get them when we did, because once these players settle down, they'll be a different outfit, I think. Second half was funny, because I think obviously their manager had given them some sort of guidance moving into the second half, and they whatever he told them, they implemented straight away. You could see that from the kickoff. And I suppose for the first time, what I liked about Tottenham was that tactically we changed things. And
quite drastically, really.
Quite drastically, and we saw the effects of that. I thought it was great. I really do. I'm smiling more about that than the amount of goals that we scored. The tactical change.
Yeah. I think that's what we were
impressive.
I think that's what I was, and maybe a few others were critical of last season in big games. And I'm not obviously saying this was a big game, but there was sometimes a bit of tactical naivety on Poch's behalf. Mm-hmm. The Juventus game springs to mind. The semi-final, probably the Juventus home game, and the Man U semi-final. In that we weren't profiting from the formation that we were playing. But he didn't change it. He maybe just brought on Lorente or brought on someone. It wasn't a natural change. So that brings us on nicely to the formation. So were you surprised that he brought Toby in and went 3 at the back?
I wanted it to happen so badly. I've got to tell you. But even before the game, I was thinking, first result Newcastle. I thought back at home, if he can bring Toby back, I'd be pleased. And he did it. And I was slightly surprised, but big pitch. I think it was needed. I think his presence. It was like he'd never left. Really, he looked really good. That back three of Sanchez and Vertonghen, they know what they're doing. So yeah.
But then, strangely, they were better when they did switch to a back four. When they did take Sanchez off, were you surprised that they took Sanchez off?
Yes, I was surprised. But it's, again, I have to applaud him for it. I didn't, obviously when you go to games sometimes and you see a player come off that you don't want to come off, I was surprised but not disappointed.
Do you think that's a sign of the times then? Do you think that almost said, Toby is now back as my, Toby and Jan are now my chosen two?
I hope not. I hope that he doesn't revert, back to a back four with those. Sanchez is young. Let's be honest. Sanchez can do things that the other two can't.
Definitely.
We can't forget that. And it was a tactical change. Sanchez was, he was in that sort of sweeper role and wasn't required for us to go and score more goals. Yeah. Dembele was required to go up, break up midfield and push us forward.
They weren't losing the midfield, but I think Dyer was struggling on his own because Eriksen and Ali were both pushing forward. Therefore, there was no one really deep apart from him. And so, Dembele did come on and change things.
He bossed it.
Is that an issue, do you think, moving forward, in terms of the fact that are we now, not now, but I mean in previous games, in previous seasons, we have been reliant on Dembele almost running games for us. Is that a worry, the fact that he was relied upon to come on and change the game for us? Knowing his sort of fitness levels and knowing his contract situation, is this a worry?
It's a worry for about a week. Until the loan window closes in Europe. I think after that, if he stays, touch wood, it's not a problem because we've got Wanyama, and we've got Dyer as well. I think maybe sort of 50 to 60% of games Dyer will be fine. And I'd like to see Dembele used, not run into the ground like in previous seasons where we have become reliant on him, and you're slightly scared if he's not in that lineup. I'd like them to use him when required. Yeah,
I think Winks coming back is going to be good as well.
Yeah, I mean,
massive fan of Harry Winks. So.
We've got cover in that position.
So man of the match, we did a Twitter poll, which if you'd like to follow is a TTILM show, and that's our Twitter handle, TTILM show. We also have a YouTube channel and a Facebook page, so please do share, like, and subscribe if you've not already done so. The man of the match was Lucas Moura. Were you surprised at that?
No, not at all. His contribution to the game was really good. He, for one of the first times, I think, really stood out. Previous games, I'm not saying he's sort of sat back and let everyone do their thing, but he really stood out for me.
I think he's definitely struggled in previous games to get involved in as much as he should be doing in that position, and I think he really did do that. He ran his heart out. He was involved in the winning the free kick, which Tripp scored from, and I think he was, I think he was a worthy man of the match. Again, like me and Rod said last week, the fact that we did have about sort of 4 or 5 people that were discussed as being man of the match, like Trippier was again, I think Hugo was again, I think there was a few more. So it's good to be in that position that you have those players.
Definitely.
So now it's time to hear from one of our members, our Spurs Fans DSI members, Jeremy, who was at the game on Saturday, and he also sent us a very cool video of Trips' free kick that we're going to share on the YouTube show as well. So Jeremy, firstly, what was your overall thoughts on the performance?
Yeah, I think it was good. It finished well. I mean, at one stage it looked like it could sort of peter out into a draw, but I think both subs that Poch made, made a huge difference. Definitely when Dembele came on, you sort of felt it straight away that, there's a bit more energy, a bit more tempo to the game. And then when Lamela came on, he added, even more sort of energy to that attack. I think against the better team, it might have been a slightly different story, but overall I think it was a great result. Obviously Harry scoring again in August, which we all know about, but I thought it was a good result in the end. It's a good sort of performance. Back in the day we might have buckled at 1-1, but we kept chipping away, and fair play to Poch for 2 sort of positive substitutions that worked, I thought.
And obviously a good turnout. We I think it's great to mention the fact that we had, almost 60,000 there for a game that obviously wasn't the biggest game of the season, is still the middle of the summer holidays. And also, after the whole Wembley shambles that we spoke about last week, I thought I was surprised that there was so many. What was the atmosphere like?
Well, I thought, it was sort of kind of like a family atmosphere. I mean, it was because sort of Fulham aren't one of our rivals, there wasn't that sort of edge to it. But I mean, like you say, 58,000 is a good turnout. I was expecting about sort of 10,000 less than that. I thought, I'd be lucky to get 50. But interestingly enough, one of my mates, he bought a ticket on the day on Spurs' website. So I think last year that wasn't available. So it shows, sort of pushed it a bit more so you can get a ticket sort of, on the day. But yeah, I thought it was a bit flat at times. But obviously when Tripp scored that goal, sort of the ground erupted, and obviously Harry got his goal, and the place went mad.
On Harry's goal, do you? Let's talk about Harry not being up to speed at the moment. How was his overall game?
Yeah, he worked hard. I mean, he still doesn't look the Harry we know. But I mean, he's always working, isn't he? And he gets that chance. I mean, he hit the bar. I think was it in the 70th minute or something.
Yes, right. Yeah.
And he keeps plugging away, and he'll always keep going, won't he? And then he pops up with that, scores that terrific goal, which it was. It was real class the way he positioned himself, turned the ex-Gooner inside out, like to have Callum Chambers. But and then he finished it well. So he'll always have that, won't he? And I think that's why Poch is sometimes hesitant to take him off. But I thought he did well overall. But yeah, he still doesn't look like the old Harry, from sort of 6 months ago. But hopefully that'll come in time, I think.
On the Sanchez substitution, were you as surprised as us at this end that happened? It's not something that would have happened last season. Were you shocked at the time?
I was a bit, to be honest. Yeah, especially Toby's been excluded from the squad. So I thought, if anyone, if any defender, he might take him off. But fair play to Poch for keeping him on. And it was, quite a bold move, really, bringing him on. I thought, yeah, he did well, really.
His overall performance, Toby, did you?
Yeah, I just think we're a much better team with him in our side, aren't we? No doubt, his passing, his control, just his presence, with him and Jan at the back, it just adds something to our team. And, obviously I think Sanchez, he plays better when there's that three, when there's three of them in the back. So yeah, a definite bonus without a doubt.
We spoke about it last week, and we've actually got an exclusive interview coming up with someone who is working on site at the actual stadium at the moment. Obviously, you bought a season ticket with a view to being at the new Tottenham Stadium. What's your sort of thoughts on the way that the club have dealt with the situation and the sort of the current mood around Spurs fans?
Well, I think I think when they came out with that announcement the other day, I think they needed to do that straight away. Say if you don't want to go to the Cardiff game, the Liverpool game, here's your refund. And I think they did that quickly. I mean, we haven't got the money yet, but I think, at least they've given people that chance now, so the people who don't want to go don't have to go. Do you know what I mean? That's the way it is. It's black and white now. You either want to go or you don't want to go, so you have a choice. So I think, I think the fans have given them a bit more respect for doing that. I think the other thing is good, like for me, last year and yourselves, now we're not sort of tied in with the same seat at Wembley. It's good to sort of, move around the stadium more. Like on Saturday, we were at the lower block 136, and which, I wanted to do for some time. And it was, it was quite a good atmosphere down there, and, you can see other parts of the ground and, move around a bit, which, I think is a positive thing. And, for me personally, I think going back to Wembley, it did sort of feel like, going home a bit. It was a bit of a strange thing. Obviously not your real home, but it was, it felt normal in a way. It was a good feeling. So, yeah. Make the most of it, I suppose. If we need to be there 3 months, 6 months, I mean, we've got to do it, haven't we? It's no point going back to the White Lane that's not, finished. So
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Lamela coming on and sort of making a difference with Dembele. What are your thoughts on Lamela? Where do you sort of place him?
I'm not his biggest fan, I'll be honest with you. But fair play to him. He's been out a couple of years. I mean, at the end of the last season, he came in strongly, didn't he? Like that last game v Leicester, and he looked like he had a real sort of new impetus in him. And again on Saturday, he had that hunger. He's getting really stuck in, and he added the energy. Whether he can start every week, I'm not sure, but
I find he's a real. I mean, Rodney is a user of the word Marmite. And he refers to Aurier as Marmite, and I think that's almost a compliment to Aurier.
Sissoko, is he Marmite?
Let's just not talk. Let's have a Sissoko-free week.
Okay, right, no worries.
But for me, I always find that Lamela is effective. I think his energy is great. I think that's key. His energy is infectious. His pace. But I just also find just the way he runs. He never really has control of the ball, and I don't even know if he necessarily knows what he's doing with the ball. But like that run proved on Saturday, he took out about 5 players and he drew them in, enabled Kane to create the space, and then Kane obviously profited from that. So in that respect, obviously we spoke about this on the group earlier on in the week, and people were saying, can Moura not run with the ball and can Son not run with the ball? And I think they can, but it's a different kind of pace with the ball, and I think that's the key to him. I think he can really split defences with his runs, and he is incisive, and he is attack-minded. He does run around like a headless chicken sometimes, with or without the ball, but it's almost like you have to sort of accept that part of his play because of what he does offer when he does do those runs like you saw. And also, like for example, the Man City goal, when we had to win to get the Champions League, the 2-1, the Eriksen pass. That was exactly what he can offer. He can offer that pace and that little sort of slide rule reverse pass that other players don't do. So, in that respect, he is definitely someone who we should be looking to use more of, but he's frustrating in that he gives away a lot of fouls, and he doesn't get enough goals, I think, for a player
I agree.
With a good shot.
I agree with that.
When you see him warming up sometimes, he hits in some screamers. Like, he's got a good shot, but he's not always necessarily confident enough to do it.
On a positive note, I think he has that edge. We saw last season at Liverpool for the 2-2 draw.
Yeah.
He came on, won a penalty, slightly dodgy, but I don't know another player in our squad that would do that. So yeah, he's
effective.
Yeah,
I think he's effective, and I think obviously
he gets under the players' skins, doesn't he? Which I think helps us,
The Trippier goal. Obviously, you've put in a video to the podcast. Your take on that? I mean, it's a funny thing, really, because standing over that, I thought Eriksen was going to take it. He's clearly come back from the World Cup and is just replicating that form from the World Cup. We were touching on it early before we started the podcast about free kicks and corners. Your take on Trippier? His deliveries.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting, like you say, like Eriksen would be the main man, for a free kick in the past, but didn't see sort of too much of a struggle, when Trippier picked the ball up. Eriksen seemed fine with it. So I don't know if it's something they've been working on at club as well as international level.
I think Eriksen had one in the first half, so they might be almost like taking turns now, I think. It was almost like Chips just said to him, you had your chance, we're both vying for this spot, as it were, and, I think it was a decent save from the Fulham keeper, but, now it's my turn, and now you can't really see Eriksen taking the next one if Trips is on the pitch. So, and your overall opinion of Trippier, because obviously Aurier did play last week, and Poch is known for his swapping of the wing backs, the full backs. But I mean,
I'd always give Trippier the nod, all day long at right back, because he does have that in his locker, after the World Cup, and we've seen it on Saturday. We need those goals. I think there was a stat in the paper today, like the amount of goals that we haven't scored hardly any from free kicks or dead pieces, like set pieces like that. So be interesting when it's sort of moving forward. It's another outlet, isn't it, really, to his game, because he's a fantastic crosser. Yeah, now he's doing stuff like that, and I mean, it's to do that the pace on that free kick and the way it did, it was just pin perfect, really, wasn't it, in that bottom corner? So yeah, I think he had a good game actually overall. But yeah, Aurier, I don't know if he will rotate there, maybe in the cup games.
No more Aurier chat.
And your man of the match? Your personal man of the match?
Wasn't it? I mean, that's what impressed me probably the most. Apart from the goals, was his work rate. Getting stuck in, chasing defenders down. He's really getting amongst their players. Putting pressure on the ball and stuff. And yeah, just his work rate, and obviously his goal that was scored. I think that was at the opposite end in the first half. But the way he sort of ran onto it was really classy. He
hard shot to hit. I think when it's running back like that to try and get that contact, it's a tough skill. So I think he did well. And then, so just to finish, what's your sort of general thoughts on the team at the moment? Where obviously we've had some season predictions last year. Obviously we've now 2 games in. Where do you sort of see the team, and where do you see us potentially finishing this season?
Well, I would say top 4 is probably, maybe 4th would be where I think we'll finish. Obviously there's a lot of the other teams have spent and stuff, and if we can keep our squad fit and what have you. I mean, on our day, our first 11, it's as good as anyone's, but it's about having players that are going to sort of impact a game when they're needed. Like we talked about Lamela and stuff, so obviously I think they're going to be key. You've got Dembele, we've got Wanyama to come back yet, so I think the only thing is the sort of who's going to get us more goals. If something happens to Harry, but as we saw last year, like our midfield can sort of weigh in. I think Sonny's always, capable of getting quite a few goals. So, I think we'll do all right, really. I just think with the new stadium, we just need to sort of keep focused and everyone get behind the team and just let everything else take care of itself. I think it's too much is sort of made of all this sort of negativity, surrounding not going to a new ground. I think that was evident Saturday. Just going to Wembley and getting behind the team, and being there for the team, really.
Top stuff. Okay, well, thanks so much for coming on, Jez.
Yeah,
nice
no problem.
See you again, and we'll hear from you again quite soon, and enjoy the rest of the season.
Nice one.
Thanks,
Cheers, guys.
Take care.
See you later.
Bye-bye. So we now have a special guest on the Thing I Love Most show. We have an exclusive guest who is working on the stadium at the moment. Obviously, we had all of this news last week that the stadium is now being delayed, and they probably could have actually heard about this news a long time ago. So I want to try and get a little bit of an insight as to what exactly is going on, and hopefully find out when, if ever, it's going to be finished. So thanks for joining us. So how long have you been working on the stadium project for?
4 weeks.
4 weeks, okay. And when you first joined, what were you sort of told about the finishing time? Were you told a finishing time, or?
Yeah, we've not been given any information like as to an official finishing time. Someone said there's 8 weeks work. Someone said that there's a few months work. We've seen the dates. I think there was meant to be the first Premier League game against my team, Liverpool, on the 15th. I'm no expert in building, but as soon as I walked into the place, I was like, it's not going to be ready for 15.
So what, as its current state, what do you think the issues are that are holding it back? Is there a plethora of things? Is it like?
It's a complete building site. Right. Still, it's not going to be finished. You're lucky if it's going to be finished this year. Yeah. It's not. It's not going to be finished this year. No.
And what do you think the major hold-up is? Do you think it's a construction issue, or is it because there's talk of like electrical issues, there's talk of safety tests? What seems to be the general opinion as to what the hold-up has actually been?
Okay, right. Health and safety, it's number one in this country, yeah, but it's holding a lot of things back because you've got to jump through this hoop, that hoop, it's all the red tape, so everything takes a lot of time, and a lot of people have got to do the same job, well, not the same job, they've got to do a job in the same area. So people are fighting for exclusion zones and rights of way, and And it's an
And there's
absolute...
obviously a backlog, isn't there? I suppose there's a backlog in terms of, because there's only one particular area, like you said, that can be used at one time. And so if you have a department, for example, electrics, that needs to try and get into a place, but then you've obviously got risk assessment, or for example, someone else.
Everyone's stepping on everyone's toes.
So if you were to say a time now or a date, if you were just to, off the top of your head, or if you were to put money on it?
My guess, what are we now? August, September?
20th of August today.
I would say March. I would say something about March. So that's just my guess. Don't quote me on that, but that's just my guess.
Well, we are going to quote you to an extent, but okay. Okay, that's interesting. So March, and do you think that everyone is sort of on that same page? Do you think everyone's aware of that? And do you think they've been aware of that for a while? Because our concern and our argument has been basically that as Spurs fans, we've paid for season tickets at the new stadium. We were sold those tickets to be at the new stadium. And we were told last week that basically there was obviously now a delay. But our thoughts are that they knew about this delay beforehand because it's been quite obvious. And they've now put this measure in place that we were able to extend Wembley. But in fact, that measure was put in place last year. So in fact, they've actually known for a while that it probably was going to be delayed, but they only sold us the season tickets on the premise that we were going to be at the new stadium because they wouldn't have been able to sell a half-season season ticket, or we wouldn't have been interested. So,
well, it's all about the money, isn't it? It's all about the money. I've been told by someone who's a manager of a different construction firm, the way it works is you put a deadline in, it doesn't get met. And there's penalties, the client passes it down to the contractor, the subcontractor. So I think they're making money as you speak since the deadline didn't get met.
Who are making money? The club?
The clients, yeah. The clubs, yeah.
As in Mace are the ones that are going to be fitting the bill for...
Well, Mace are the health and safety, aren't they? So it's every other subcontractor be like booking whoever else, blah, 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 blah. And it just keeps getting passed down. So they're savvy, they're not soft. They build stadiums and things.
Of course, yeah. Thank you very much for that. That is an exclusive here on the Thing I Love Most show. The stadium's going to be ready in March. Fantastic, can't wait. So that was interesting. We just had an exclusive interview with someone who's working on the stadium who said that he doesn't think the stadium is going to be ready till March.
Well, I was standing behind the camera and my heart dropped there when I heard that.
Were you really surprised though?
No, I wasn't actually. I wasn't surprised at all. He mentioned a number of different things, you know, and it was great hearing, you know, his explanation regarding health and safety, because it's not just a fire alarm that's not working. There's a number of different things, and it's a very complex construction. And with that in mind, it's going to take longer than we thought. And so, just putting some reality into this, and not hearing what some of our fans are saying about, you know, electricians and, you know, stuff like that. It was great hearing it from you know, one of the horse's mouth, really.
Yeah. I think the thing is that I don't think any of us would have really minded if they would have said, we're going to be at Wembley for 2 years. I really don't think so. It is what it is. We are building an absolutely amazing world-class stadium that we're all going to love being in for many, many years to come. And, you know, if that takes a little bit longer, it takes a little bit longer. I think they just tried to rush it. I think they tried to rush it because they didn't think they'd be able to necessarily sell the season tickets if it wasn't a full season at the new stadium. Mm-hmm. And it's just backfired. I mean, you know, so for example, if he's right in that it's not going to be ready till March, what happens then? Do we then move in for like the last 6 games of the season? I mean, it seems very pointless to do so.
It does seem pointless. I suppose it depends on where we are in the league. I don't think it's such a bad thing to have those last few games there. I don't think it's that bad, but yeah, I suppose there is a problem if you're doing well in the league and you change, you know, venues and you're not doing so well.
They would have been already getting used to Wembley again, and then I think it wouldn't be worth it. And it would be nice to start as we wanted to do, at the new stadium, a new season at the new stadiums. But we don't know. Obviously, at the moment, the only thing official from the club is that the next 2 league games are at Wembley, and then the Man City game at the moment is a TBC because basically they don't know. It can't be at Wembley on the 28th of
October.
Because there was an NFL game there.
Yeah.
But surely it could be the 27th or maybe even a few days afterwards. It seems a bit strange unless they completely changed the whole stadium in terms of doing the NFL games.
Pochettino mentioned that it could be played the day after the NFL, but obviously the pitch will be cut up.
I think that's probably going to happen. I think that'll probably happen. So it's that time of the show where we talk about our player of the week, and this week's player, Big Bad Don, is
David Ginola.
Big player, great player.
Great player. David joined the club in '97 for £2.5 million. He came from Newcastle.
He was a cult figure in Newcastle as well before he left, didn't he?
Yeah.
He did so well for them.
Fantastic player, very attack-minded. I would say, that traditional winger, once he gets, he's on the wing.
But he's quite built, isn't he? Like in terms of like stature, he was like, he was a bit of like a Ronaldo build in terms of like he had quite a good physique, which is quite a strange. Why are you looking at that?
No.
You're thinking, you haven't got that sort of physique. So why
understand. I mean, he wasn't a raw fox where the shirt was like
he was
wings.
twice the size of Raw Fox to begin with. But no, in terms of like your sort of like archetypal winner, Darren Anderton was like your old school winger in terms of Manaman style body. But Ginola was always he had a good physique, so that surprised me. But you're right in terms of he was that sort of winger. He had great skill, great close control. He could always twist up someone, and then he had a great shot on him as well.
Deceptive pace as well. He was able to beat defenders. Just zip past them. Most notably, we've got to talk about this if we're talking about Ginola, is the Barnsley goal in the 98-99 season.
Classic goal.
He beats how many defenders? 4 or 5 defenders.
He had it in his locker though, didn't he? He always had it in his locker.
Just while we're on that, the same season, Giggs does nearly the same thing to Arsenal, to our close rival, for Man United in the FA Cup, one where he takes his shirt off and big hairy
one of the
chest.
greatest FA Cup goals ever.
But obviously, being a Spurs fan, there was that point where we were trying to compare the two. Let's be honest, which do you think was better?
Well, you have to, with any goal, have to consider the moment and the stature of the game. So, Giggs' goal was better.
How dare you?
Just being honest.
Yeah, okay, being honest.
Just being honest. So in terms of, obviously, he was bought for 2.5 million in '97. So in terms of, we spoke about Klinsmann last week being about, 75 million, we said. So what do you think his Ginola's price would be in this current incredibly inflated, sometimes stupid market?
Before I talk about prices, he was named PFA Player of the Year in that year, and also Football Writers Award, he won that as well. He's the first Premier League player in history to win both awards and not play in the top 4. For 100 appearances, 13 goals, doesn't seem...
Someone has been doing their homework.
Yes.
Up in here.
It doesn't seem like a lot, but it wasn't just about the goals. He did a lot. He did a lot more than that. In today's current market, I would say I'd compare him to a Mahrez. So I'm saying 60 mil.
I think that's a good shout.
I think he's a £60 million player.
I think that's a good shout.
He would in today's game. He'd have to do a lot more work.
Would he fit into the current Spurs team?
Honestly, I don't think he would. I think his work rate when losing the ball was probably not the best. But we spoke about it right at the beginning. He's a cult hero.
Yeah.
Outside of the pitch, he was always, he come across as a good person. Anyway, I've been lucky enough to meet him, and He is. He's a really nice person. You know, Spurs is still his club.
If you listen to him on TalkSport now, though, he's not massively. He is still a Spurs fan, but he does still say, you know,
Yeah.
he's not massively positive about us.
If you meet him as a person, seriously,
Okay.
Tottenham,
Alright, well,
Tottenham
yeah.
is his team.
Bring him along to the Blue Coats. We'll have a beer.
But yeah, the £60 million player for sure.
So those of you that watched last week, you would have seen one of our members, Spurs Fans DSI members, Brian Hurley, on the show, who gave his views on all things Tottenham and was really, really good. You might have noticed also that he was quite laid back and quite eloquent and quite sort of reserved. This isn't the Brian Hurley that I know. And since we've been recording the podcast, Liverpool have been playing and Liverpool were awarded a penalty. And I just checked his Facebook and it seems that the Brian Hurley that we all know and love is actually back. And I quote his reaction to the awarding of the penalty was, "Dirty, cheating, diving, knows it. He knows he did it too, looking at his reaction." And then we also have Daisy, who is also one of our Spurs Fans DSI member, who is also normally quite eloquent, who has written, "Diving, imagine that was Ali, hell." So that's pretty much what happens when we don't have our Spurs Fans DSI members on camera. They actually turn into complete crazies. So this is what we're dealing with. So we've just heard news that Heung-min Song has scored the winner for South Korea, which means they're now into the last 16 of the Asian Games, which we are quite pleased about, because basically that means that if he was to win the Asian Games with South Korea, then he would avoid military service with South Korea, which will basically take him out for 2 years. So this is a good thing. We're rooting for Son. They're playing against Iran in the last 16. He scored a winner against Kyrgyzstan on Monday, today. And so now that means that they are through to the knockout stages. They actually had to have second place in Group E because they lost, surprisingly, to Malaysia when Son made his debut at the tournament. So fingers crossed. It does seem like such a crazy thing, which we could potentially lose a player for, but...
Yeah. It's funny, we're sort of, you know, in any other tournament, let's just say it was the African nations, and a player so integral to Tottenham was playing, you'd want their, I'm not saying you would want their team to lose, but you kind of want him back as soon as possible. We want him to win it. We just want him to win it so that he doesn't do that. And
but Iran were a decent team at the World Cup. Yeah, they gave Spain a good game. They gave Morocco a good game. They were a tidy team, so they're not going to be easy at all.
Definitely not. I think, this will be their hardest challenge. And the fact that they've been at the World Cup, Iran, both teams have been there, I think that they would have benefited from the type of opposition that they faced there. It's pretty evenly matched though. You know, South Korea beat Germany. And Iran, like you said, had done well against Spain and Morocco. So we're rooting for South Korea.
Come on, South Korea. So it's new feature time on the Spurs, the Thing I Love Most show. So this week I went and spent some money, Don.
You've been spending.
Mans is flossing, and I spent money on some Top Trumps cards. Now these cards, admittedly, are a little bit rubbish. I'll tell you why. Because basically, they are all from one season. And they're not all from one season, but most of them are from one season, and they basically don't give you stats for the whole careers of those players, which is frustrating. However, they do have 10 classic players, of which we've separated those players. So we're going to play a little bit of Top Trumps now.
Am I allowed to look at them?
You're allowed to look at them, yeah, but look at the first one because it's in order. Have you ever played Top Trumps before?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to turn over the first card here, and I'm going to ask you to choose one of these topics of which we're going to start on, and we're going to see how far we're going to go. Okay, so which of these topics? So we've got height, weight, goals for Spurs, year of birth, international caps, or appearances for Spurs. Now, obviously you've seen that, so I'm not going to let you go first. I'm going to choose one because I haven't looked at mine, and I'm going to go for appearances for Spurs. So my person I have, my superstar, is Jimmy Greaves, who had an amazing 379 appearances for Spurs. What have you got in your locker? Who is your player? Have you won the first Top Trumps Spurs?
I have one. You're damn right.
Who have you got?
I've got Steve Perryman.
Oh.
854 appearances.
That's
beat that.
I think that's probably
Beat that.
impossible to beat.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Give me your card.
There's your card. Oh,
Give
man.
me your card.
Okay, so now, obviously, Top Trumps, you get to choose the next topic.
I'm going to go for goals.
Goals, okay. How many did your player score?
It's Gary Lineker, and
man.
he scored 80 goals.
Well, I've got Danny Blanchflower, an absolute legend, but unfortunately he only scored 21. Okay, there you go.
I quite like this game, actually.
Oh, I'm glad that you like my new feature, because it was a costly affair. Okay, here we go. You'll go again.
Goals again.
Goals again.
Chris Waddle,
Yes.
42.
Chris Waddle scored 42 goals for Spurs.
Yes, 42 goals.
Oh, man. Okay, well, I've got your boy, David. He only scored 22. Okay, I've got two more cards. These are the final two Top Trumps challenges. Let's see what you got.
I'm going to go for appearances again.
I think you're going to win.
It's Ozzy Ardiles with 311.
I've got Gazza with 112. Damn. Okay, final one, final challenge. Let's see if it can be a clean sweep.
I'm going to go goals again.
Oh, well, you're going to obviously win. Who have
Glenn
you got?
Hoddle.
Glenn Hoddle.
With 110.
Okay, and what did I have? Super Gary Mabbott with 38. So that's a regular feature, and I like that.
I win!
So we thought it was worthwhile discussing the Poch rant, which happened the other day after the Fulham game, because it was a rant. It had elements of Mourinho in it, but not as negative and not as self-obsessed. But it was a really interesting aspect of Poch's personality that was seen and revealed, because he was quite defensive, but then he was also you felt that he was sort of like, he was saying, this is what I do and this is what happens, and this is rubbish what you guys are trying to tell me to do, and why are you doing it?
Yep.
He started talking about basically, you came up with the game, you came up with the route to the game,
Yep.
You chose a team of 11 players, why don't you make it? And it was like, it was a strange one, because obviously it was sparked by a question about Alderweireld, and it was like, he went on a proper tangent, which is rare for him to do, after a victory as well, which is quite surprising.
There were sort of subliminal shots fired as well, without mentioning any players' names. He alluded to various things that had happened. Players maybe knocking on his office door, asking to play. I wouldn't say players engineering moves, but let's be straight. If you're not playing, sometimes you're not happy, and so throwing your toys out the pram, you're expecting a reaction from your manager, and the reaction could be, panicking him into playing you, and that's he mentioned all of that in there. It was quite interesting.
It was very interesting,
quite entertaining, but very interesting in how he went about that. And some of it I think is spot on. The one thing I took from that is that they train. They sign to train, and that's it. You don't even sign to play for Pochettino. You sign to train, and he picks you based on what he sees.
Absolutely, and I think also it's quite indicative of the state of the game at the moment, in terms of, this has been going on for years, where players haven't been able to play.
Yep.
Players have been disappointed, but now we're edging towards that moment where players almost have more power because of the money in the game, because of the money they can demand. Mm-hmm. Even if you sign a 5-year contract, if you hand in a transfer request, if you say you want to go, you're probably going to go, because the player, the rest of the team don't want you there, that the club doesn't want you there. So it's incredible what player power can do nowadays, and so it's a really interesting take on the situation there. Was he talking about Rose? Was he talking about Toby? We don't know, but I think it's an interesting It's an interesting point, and I think he dealt with it quite well. And it was good to see him showing a bit of, like sort of.
I agree.
Don't know what the word is, but
yeah, it was out of character. That's if we.
You could tell that if you crossed him in training, or if you crossed him, he would show you where the door is.
Yep.
So it's that time of the show where we get to speak to an opposing fan of the team that we're playing this week. And this week we have Chris on the line. Chris is a Man United fan because we're playing them on Monday night, Bank Holiday Monday. So Chris, firstly, before we go into the current team setup and your current state of affairs, as it were, so give me a little bit of background about yourself as a Man United fan.
All right, I've been I'm one of those lucky few United fans that are from Manchester, so apparently a dying breed. I've been a fan since I was a kid. The first game I went to was 1993, City United. Funnily enough. We came back 1-3-2.
Main Road?
Yeah.
Nice.
Main Road.
Nice.
So, quickly, before we talk about, obviously, the game on Monday, your thoughts on the current Man United setup, squad, team?
Where did you start? I mean, the team itself, obviously, I'm guessing people watched the game on Sunday.
We did.
It was... I haven't seen us play like that for a long, long time, if ever, if I'm honest. We were a complete shambles. No one knew what to do. There was no organisation, which is strange because Mourinho is usually known for his organisation, especially in defence. Absolutely atrocious. It's whether Mourinho should stay or not.
It's come down to that. Wow. Okay.
Wow.
I just think that the problem with Mourinho is his style hasn't changed. Football has moved on since when he first came to Chelsea, and although he's probably solidified the team from when it was before, I don't think it's now going anywhere. It's got to Mourinho's notoriously third bad season.
He doesn't seem to know his first team as well. He doesn't seem to know his best team.
He doesn't know his best team, and if you notice how he is as a manager and as a person, since when we first saw him come to the Premiership, he was quite a jovial character, quite funny. Now he's just moody constantly, all the time.
Yeah. And
so that's going to rub off on the players, and no one's going to have fun when they're playing football. And that, not just him, but obviously Ed Woodward above him. It's like the blind leading the blind. He's not even a football man.
Chris, do you feel, if he was to go, is there a particular sort of coach, manager that you would want coming in?
That's probably the problem why they haven't got rid of him. There doesn't seem to be that many people around at the moment. I did read that Zidane was on a potential list, so... But obviously, he did that with the team that he had, with Ronaldo and stuff like that. Can he then replicate that out of a team like this?
Well, let's move on to more positive matters. Let's talk about the Spurs team. What are your thoughts on the current Spurs setup?
Well, obviously, you've had a similar transfer window to us.
Not really. I think we had a far worse.
Okay. We bought a third-choice goalkeeper, a 19-year-old defender who is injured, and Fred. So out of all that, Fred's the only one really, and I don't know where he was on Sunday. So, but you guys have got a good, strong team. You're very young. You've played together for a long time. I'm thinking obviously what the result would be on Monday, and I'm looking. It's at Old Trafford. They've got a point to prove. But I still think it's going to be a draw.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
That's good. I'm pleased you think that. I'm torn whether it's a it's a good time to play them or not. I saw them, I thought they looked incredibly disjointed. I thought they looked, like he said, lost of ideas, no real leadership. It should be a great time to play them.
Should be, but
You're obviously going to sometimes get a kickback off that kind of performance, you know, and they are at home. But things like that don't change overnight. Like, you know, Bailly doesn't become a great defender overnight. Lindelof doesn't become a good defender. They were shocking, you know, against Brighton. So, you know, we've got the players that can hurt them. So you have to be confident. I think we can win. I think we can win.
I mean, obviously, Kane's broken his August duck right now. So
yeah. So we're gonna do our predictions for the week, Chris, and we're gonna let you go first. So scoreline predictions.
I'm gonna say 1-1.
Okay. Big Bad Dom.
I'm going to go 1-1 as well.
Okay. I'm gonna stick my neck out and go 2-1 Spurs. I think we're gonna go 1-0 up, and I think that's gonna maybe deflate you guys, and I think we might even go 2-0 up, and then you guys might get a late consolation when you rally. But I think we're going to win, and yeah.
I mean, obviously, I'm doing that tempting fate thing where I say
Yeah,
it's
of course,
in the back of my mind. I'm like, yeah, we're going to win.
Okay. Well, fingers crossed you don't. And amazing. Thanks so much for coming on, Chris. Lovely to speak to you.
No worries.
And
You too.
yeah. Talk to you again soon.
Cheers, Chris.
On the train to Manchester now. See you later.
See you later, buddy. Take care.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you to Chris for his input with regards to next week's game. So it's time to talk about next week's game in a bit more depth and to discuss the formation and lineup that you think they should play, Don. So first of all, formation, do you think we should stick with the back three or move to a back four?
I think we should start the game as we finished the game. So I think we revert back to a back four against United.
Okay.
I know it seems quite harsh for one of the defenders.
I was going to say, who is that defender?
I think it's, as much as I like Toby, the sort of element surrounding him, maybe moving to Manchester, there's that added pressure for any player who's linked, rumoured to be leaving, and I think we revert back to a Vertonghen Sanchez partnership with Rose if he's available, and
Well, he was available for Saturday.
yeah, I think we play Rose.
Supposedly.
I think we play Rose, and yeah, we play Trippier again.
Okay, but we finished the game with Lamela and Dembele.
Yeah,
We've
I
only
think
got space for one of those. If not, then who are you dropping?
Possibly Mora, I would drop for the game. I know he done really well. But this is business at the end of the day, and I think we need that tenacity back in the team. Dembele for sure has to start. I think I'd start with Dembele and Dyer in midfield.
Okay, interesting. I think I would I'd definitely try and put Rose in there if I can over Davies. I think he's definitely an outlet. And I think I probably agree with you in terms of I think a back four is probably the way to go. And I would probably agree with you in terms of Sanchez as well, because the pace that he has could be a good foil for Martial and Rashford. So yeah, I think that's probably a good idea. I would leave Moura on. I don't think you can take a player that puts in a man of the match performance and then sub him off. So I would leave Lamela on the bench as an impact sub and hopefully come on and make the same impact that he did the other day. So
the good thing about it, just before we wrap up, what I like about it is we can talk about the selection. We were worried about the depth of the squad, but seeing some of the players, John Jones mentioned it on our group that with Lamela coming on, there are shades of depth to our squad.
yeah,
I have to agree with that.
I agree to a certain extent, but I don't think there's definitely not really when it comes to striking options. I think that's the key. But in midfield, yeah, I think we're great, and we've got Winks coming back. I would love to see Winks even start if he's fit. over Dembele. Put him in there. I love Winks. I think he's going to have a very, very good season. So fingers crossed. We shall see. So we are going to be back next week. We're going to be recording on Tuesday. Obviously, the day after the game against Man United on the Monday, Bank Holiday Monday. So we wish you all a good week. Thank you very much for watching and listening once again. Our Twitter handle is TTILM Show. We're also available on Instagram and Facebook, and our YouTube show is The Thing I Love Most show as well. So please, if you haven't done already, please do subscribe and share. And thank you so much for all your comments that you've given so far. And continue to support the show. And we'll see you next week.